Hi, and welcome to Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving, a podcast series by the Anika Foundation focused on youth mental health. Before we begin today's episode, I just wanted to let you all know that all content that is found in our podcast is created for informational purposes only. This content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, treatment, or therapy. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition, and never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard in this podcast. Thank you so much, and without further ado, let's get started.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode. We've all had that feeling when we believe high school was designed to mess up our lives and tear us apart. And we've pulled the all-nighters, sacrificed our health, and given up on relationships. Our guest is one of us, Anika, and she's a high school student. Welcome, Anika.
Hi, Seerat. Thank you for having me on this podcast. I'm so honored to be here and talk about my experience as a high school junior.
Yeah, me too. I'm excited to talk to you. So you've made it halfway through junior year, which we call like the busiest and toughest year of high school. So when you wake up on a Tuesday morning, what's the state of your mind? Are you attacking the day or just trying to survive it?
I think it really depends on my mood when I wake up in the morning, right? I feel like we can all wake up on the wrong side of the bed or we can wake up on a good side of the bed. Sometimes I'm very motivated, and then other times I feel like I'm just trying to make it through the rest of the day. And then something that can help me feel really excited for the rest of the day, having plans to look forward to, whether that's for me, some of the extracurriculars that I enjoy, making plans with my friends, different things like that really helps me look forward to school and think of it as a more positive thing rather than a negative thing. Also, when I study really hard for a test, that really helps. I feel like it really depends on the day. I think for me, I think school can be really stressful and not super enjoyable. So, again, when I have things to look forward to, it makes it really exciting and can turn something that has a very negative connotation to it and make it something that's a little bit more positive.
Yeah, I completely agree. Like some days I know if I have some like test or something that day, I know I might not feel like super excited to go to school, but I know like after that I have this other class or I have this other activity and I really enjoy it. So that's something that, okay, once I get through the test, I know I have something I enjoy. So I think that's a wonderful way to look at it. And we all know everything has a cost. What's been the cost of your grades and extracurriculars? So have you lost sleep? Have you lost a bit of your hobby? What was the trade worth?
Yeah, so I think for me, I tend to get too into my head about doing really well in school, right? I tend to be a really big perfectionist. I like to do the best I can, but then that can come at the cost of not really doing as well on tests and not really doing well on homework assignments because when there's a lot of anxiety in your mind and there's a lot of pressure, that can come at the cost of your performance. I think I just get really hyper fixated on the results, and this just makes me go down into a downward spiral because I'm not grounding myself into the present moment. I'm looking into the future rather than the present. And yeah, so I think I'm trying to work on going into different performance based tasks with a really positive mindset, with a really grounded mindset, in order to make sure that I'm doing the best I can personally and knowing that and having the confidence in myself that I did what I was supposed to do and I gave it my all. And remembering to let go has been something that, even as a high school junior, I'm still trying to work through and I'm still trying to fix.
Yeah, I can relate to this too, because I think we all want like the perfect score, and it's like the what the Bay Area culture has instilled. But I've noticed like from like freshman year to now, if I focus too much on the actual test score, I do worse than if I don't score on it or I don't like focus on the score. So obviously not wanting to fail, but not being like hyper fixated that I only want this.
For
And
sure,
focusing
yeah.
more on the journey rather than the end result.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing I've noticed in me is that like around the first week of school, I'm like super up to date with all my assignments. I'm getting all my homework in, I'm getting all my schoolwork in, and like I'm on top of all my extracurriculars and sports. But after the first or second week of school, it goes like downhill from there. So how do you ensure that everything doesn't turn into a spiral downward spiral after the second week of school.
Yeah, for sure. You put it perfectly, Seerith. I feel like a lot of us lose motivation. It's just a natural human instinct, and we just have to push through that. I tend to lose motivation a lot throughout the school year, but what helps is having a couple tools on hand to help me get started. It helps to remove that like task paralysis where you're unsure of like how to start a task. So a couple things that I like to do is I like to use the Pomodoro method. I have a timer actually next to me right now, and it helps me to get started on any task. So I like to set 30 minutes for, I don't know, maybe reading a textbook and then giving myself like a 10-minute break. And that really helps in ensuring that I get the momentum of starting a task going, and then I can continue on with that task later as I continue the task. And this kind of ensures that I'm managing my time when I'm starting the task at hand. And then another thing that I like to do is outline all of the things that I have to do. It just gives me an overview of what's at stake if I don't do the task that I have. And it just helps me make sure that I get the tasks done. And then lastly, I feel like knowing your energy levels and knowing when you're the most productive is really helpful because you can do low hanging tasks a lot later at night, maybe if you're feeling really tired, and then do more strenuous, more lengthy tasks in the morning, maybe if you're a morning person, because it can help you motivation wise and help you crank out as much work as possible. So just knowing different tools and applying them has been really helpful for me, and also making sure that I give myself grace, right? I'm not always going to be the most productive, but I have to go easy on myself. I have to remember that I'm doing the best I can, but I also have to make sure that I'm not being too comfortable, as I like to say. You got to push yourself, you got to endure the hard work, and you got to endure the hardworking mentality in order to reach your goals and your dreams. So I'd say there's a pretty good balance of hard work, but also taking breaks and being easy on yourself. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it did. And I noticed like after what like I was talking about like the first week of school, and then after that I feel like I lose motivation to keep working. So I think that was a good point to see if I don't finish then what's going to happen. And I think we all know what's going to happen. But I did like your other techniques too, like the Pomodoro method and then listing down thing like all the work you have. Sometimes it feels like a really big like mess in my head that I have like so much, but when I write it down, it's not as much as I actually made it to be or made
For
it to
sure.
feel like. So I think definitely like writing down and making like a to-do list of everything that we have is very important. And this kind of leads into my next question. You were talking about like task paralysis, where it's hard to get a task started, and sometimes we procrastinate. And we all know like procrastination is the biggest killer in high school. So if you have a huge paper due and you're staring at your phone, how do you get yourself to start?
Yeah, one thing that I've tried to implement this year as a junior is the 5-minute rule. So I tend to, again, have a lot of like task paralysis, and there's a lot, as you can probably imagine, a lot of courses, a lot of homework assignments, a lot of little assignments that kind of tend to build up. And it definitely does feel like it's really hard to start, and I'm just like scrolling on my phone or doing something like that. But what really helps me is the 5-minute rule. I've noticed that when I scroll on my phone, I tend to lose motivation. If I, in turn, put my phone down, set a 5-minute timer. So over here, I have a timer that I've been using consistently. And when I put my phone down and I set a timer for 5 minutes, and then I work on a task for that amount of time, it helps me gain momentum. And then the science behind that is you increase your dopamine levels, and that again raises your motivation. And it's really helpful in this case because when you're doing the 5-minute rule, your goal is not to complete the task necessarily, only to complete the task. It's also to gain the momentum so that you're able to sustain working for the task for long periods of time. So this has really helped me to just put my phone down and get right to work.
Yeah, I think you explained it beautifully that like the entire point of working or doing an assignment is not just to complete it or have something on the page. It's to be able to keep like working on it without getting bored of it and also doing it in good quality too. So I think you did it and I really like your method of putting a timer starting for 5 minutes and then once you do those 5 minutes you get in the momentum to do it. So I'll be putting a timer and I'll be trying that.
Yeah,
And
and
then
it's even helpful if you, sorry, it's even helpful if you have a physical timer, right? If that's possible. If you have a phone, if you have a timer on your phone, that's fine. But I've noticed it's really helpful for me to have a physical timer because I'm not scrolling on my phone. Yeah.
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, if you have timer on your phone, then you're more likely to start scrolling again. Yeah. So, what's a habit that you had as a freshman? Maybe it was like how you studied or how you picked friends that you had to completely unlearn to survive this year.
Yeah, so I think my habit that I had as a freshman was that I didn't really study effectively. There's a huge gap, I'd say, going from middle school to high school. The increase in work, first of all, has drastically increased. And I've also noticed that there's the ask that the teachers have for you is a lot greater in high school because you're essentially supposed to do complete all the work by yourself, have it due at a certain date, plan backwards, that kind of thing. So I feel like my studying skills and my overall executive functioning were a little weak because I was never really taught that. And I wouldn't really blame myself due to that huge gap that we have between middle school and high school. Yes, middle school can be more of a stepping stone between elementary school, where they spoon feed you what you're supposed to know, and high school where you're essentially preparing yourself to be an adult and you're preparing yourself to you're like enhancing your future by yourself essentially. So I wouldn't really blame myself, but I would say that overall executive functioning and my study skills weren't the best. Now as a junior, I would say that I've definitely gained some skills. I've gained a little bit more insight into how the class system work, how all my classes work essentially, because I've learned to look at the syllabus, I've learned to talk to my teachers, and I've learned to advocate for myself. So I think that there's a huge jump, dramatic jump in terms of freshman year me and junior year me. And I think I can definitely look back on freshman year me and say that I definitely wasn't thriving in terms of how I was studying and how I was doing executive functioning wise.
Yeah, I can relate to this because like in my freshman year, it was like so many doors just open. Like in middle school, we were like babied and we had there was much more flexibility in like assignments and like how we were with teachers. But now in high school, like you don't have any time after deadlines. Like deadlines there and then it's gone. And also like with teachers now everyone's you have to show your best face in front of them for your like letter of rec you're gonna get 4 years later. So I think like the amount of like pressure they've put is a lot more in high school and obviously like homework wise and tests too. So yeah, I completely agree. Like yet last year in my freshman year, like I think my executive functioning was horrible, but I think I've gotten better now.
For sure.
And
And I think it's a skill that you gain over time. You get used to your classes and the overall spin of things in high school. And yeah, I think it's just something you have to get used to over your 4 years at high school.
yeah, I feel like I came into sophomore year much more prepared than I did for freshman.
For
And
sure.
then
Yeah.
so switching gears a little bit, Mel Robin talks about the let them theory, which is like letting people talk about their opinions so you can keep your peace. So where in high school have you had to say let them think what they want so you could focus?
Yeah, for me, I've noticed that a lot of kids in my school are really high achievers and do really well. Some people outperform others, and that's great, but it could come at the cost of you feeling like you're behind, when in reality, you might be doing just perfectly fine. I think there's a huge culture in the Bay Area where you have to maybe get into an Ivy League school or top UC or whatever, and that can put a lot of pressure on the students, right? So I think it's really important to evaluate where you currently are and look at how you're doing and ignore the noise around you, right? If someone's going to Harvard for law school or aspires to be a lawyer after high school, and is going to Harvard to study, you should accept that they're going to Harvard and that's great for them. That's something that they want to do, and you should let them. You should protect your peace by not comparing, by trying not to compare yourself to others, and you should just be happy with where you are, right? Everyone has a different path, whether that's being a fashion designer, a lawyer, a doctor, a pharmacist. That kind of shows how there's a different path for everyone, right? I think an important thing to also note is that there's a lot of talk about different colleges, right? There's a lot of colleges in the US for so many people. So wherever you end up, you'll end up in the spot that's right for you. And I think it's important to also make sure that you're thinking about how you're doing, and also make sure not to hyperfixate on what others are doing, because it can come at the cost of your mental health, and yeah, it's just not worth it.
Yeah, I agree. Like swimming in your own lane, that's a big thing. And also, I think I like how you said that if someone's how do I say, if someone's doing something really exceptional or really good, you don't have to compare them. Like obviously that's great for them. You can feel happy, but you don't have to start comparing. So that's where we can use the let them theory. I also think sometimes I know high school there's a lot of like drama, like gossip that goes around. So if people are like talking about you or something like, and if they're not like your close friends or people you talk to, and there's some like random people walking around, then just honestly let them, because if they're not going to tell you, they're not friends with if you're not friends with them, then what their opinion is doesn't really matter.
And adding on to that, Seereth, over 90% of the people you won't see after you graduate high school. After you get your diploma and you're out of your hometown or you're out of your little bubble, you're not going to see over 90% of people. And that's a really big number, because if you don't see 90% of the people and you're stressing about what people said about you throughout high school, then I don't see there being a lot of point in stressing about the people that you're not spending a lot of your time with and you're not likely to see after your 4 years in high school. So I think it's also important to protect your peace, as you mentioned, and make sure that you are giving attention to the things that need to have attention on.
Yeah, yeah, that's well put. And I actually did not know 90%. Like, it's really cool to hear the numbers that you don't actually meet all your high school friends after college. So obviously, if there's something that's actually like a true problem, obviously go and fix it. But if there's some like people who you would never even talk to and they're there like talk back talking you, then there's no point in trying to care about what they think of you. But while saying that, I do think it's important to note that if it's like a actual like feedback that's true coming from someone you actually care about, then that's not a time to say, okay, let them think. Then maybe you should take a moment to reflect, like, am I actually doing that?
For sure. I think there's definitely, you have to take it with a grain of salt and understand that it could either be a piece of feedback or it could be someone saying an untrue thing about you. And you've got to understand that it's a reflection of them and it's not a reflection of you. Your values, what you stand for. And if someone's saying something that's untrue, it's a likely reflection of them projecting their own insecurities, their own beliefs onto you. So you just have to protect your peace again by understanding the person's viewpoint and how they are as a person to understand what they're saying about you is true or untrue.
Yeah, I really like that. If someone says something that's untrue about you, then it's most likely a reflection of them, not you.
Correct. Yeah.
And so, as a sophomore looking towards my junior year, I see lots of pressure. So, what's something I should be excited about to be a junior, and one thing I should be terrified of?
Yeah, so I don't know if I would put it as, or if I would say that there's things to necessarily be terrified for. I know that there's a lot of like negative things and negative connotations about junior year and being an upperclassman, but what I would say is that junior year does get really busy, right? Whether you're taking a bunch of APs, you're looking into driver's ed, you're looking into taking the SAT, I feel like it's the year that you're the most involved. That might be a hot take, that might be really controversial, but I feel like this year, I feel like I'm really figuring out what I'm interested in, divulging a lot of my time into my passions. So for me, for example, I'm taking AP psychology this year and a couple other really hard courses, and I would say that AP psychology specifically has been a great way for me to really grow my interest in psychology because it's something that I'm considering to do in the future. So I think this year as a junior, I really feel like I am furthering my interests and I'm really growing as a person and figuring out what I want to do. So yeah, I think of the positive aspects about being a junior is that you really get to figure out what you're interested in, and you should take it into account very positively, right? Because you're figuring out what you want to do for the rest of your life, and I know that can be scary, but it's a thing that you should look forward to, right? If you have a negative connotation about it, you're going to go into this year with a really negative attitude. But if you have a positive connotation about this year, then I feel like you're very open to trying new things and you're open to learning more about what you're passionate about. But then I would caution you about not trying to overcommit and set boundaries with yourself in terms of trying to overcommit because I feel like a lot of times I'm eager to say yes to things, and as a junior, I feel like I'm always really excited to do things, and then sometimes I get into my head about, oh, this would look really good for college, but realistically I might not have the time. So I would caution you to be very careful about how you spend your time, how you manage your time, and yeah. So I hope that also answered your question.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point here about like APs and all
Mhm.
these extracurriculars to do them not because oh it'll look good on like the transcript, it'll look good in my college apps, but like something you actually enjoy doing. If you're taking a really like popular AP because everyone's taking it and you want to like look have it look good on your transcript, then maybe you'll do good, but I highly doubt like you'll actually enjoy learning about it. But if you take an AP that you enjoy, you're obviously you enjoy it, you're going to study more, you're going to get the five. So I
Mhm.
think focusing more on what you enjoy, and that leads us to what you were talking about, like what excites you in high and junior years, that you're able to go deeper in like the topics that you want, and then you're able to discover what things I enjoyed learning about, what things I don't, and finding things that you don't like is also important because now you've crossed out and eliminated some things. Yeah, I think that was really cool. And as we're closing, I want to ask, what's one piece of advice you would give to your younger self, either before entering high school or during high school?
Yeah, so I think as a rising freshman in high school, I was really like concerned about how high school would be for me. I was really intimidated by the whole high school process. The main things I saw about high school were things from the TV shows and movies. While in turn, I feel like looking back, it's nothing like that. But I think it was really intimidating for me. It was really nerve-wracking. I wasn't really sure. Both my parents didn't grow up in the US. I think that was a huge thing for me because I didn't really have anyone to really ask about their experience. But what I would say is that the universe has a really great way of working out. If you're struggling, I think I struggled a little bit with the hard classes I was taking and my extracurriculars and getting a hang of things. So I think I would overall say that you should just try your best. It's really important to work hard, try really hard, and give it your all, and then everything will work out. Everything falls into place. You get into a swing of things. It becomes a lot easier. You form a really good support system at school, I would say. So you're able to lean on different people. And yeah, another thing I would like to add is that it's really important to advocate for yourself, right? If you're not advocating for yourself and you're not talking to different people and telling them things that you're struggling with, I think that it can really impact you. So I highly urge any high schoolers or and to really advocate for yourself. I think it's really important to talk to different people and yeah.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful. Like, advocate for yourself, make sure you're always like seen and heard. So it's better rather than sitting and complaining and venting about someone, like you can go and advocate for yourself. But then I think you also mentioned like entering high school was like hard and it felt intimidating and there was no one to really talk to about, which I agree. And I really hope this podcast goes to every high schooler so they don't feel like they don't see high school as this big intimidating monster. They can feel like, okay, so there's everyone's going through it, so it won't be as bad as I expect it to be.
Yeah, and I highly encourage you to, like, for the freshmen that could be watching this, I highly encourage you to find the positives in your life right now because it'll only multiply and only increase. And try to find people that you get really excited to talk to, right? These most likely will be the people that you're going to spend your next 4 years with. So I encourage you to also find a really try and surround yourself with positive, like-minded people that are also really goal-oriented and yeah, just people that share the same values as you. I think it's really easy for us to look for people that are really close to us in terms of friends, right? So you might go sit with people that you know already, but they might not be the most hardworking, the most like the best friends. So I think that you should really spend time in trying to make friends, put yourself out there, even though it could be scary. And yeah, I'm sure that high school will go great for you. If you're anywhere else in high school, everything tends to work out, everything gets a lot better. You'll gain momentum and you'll be able to really thrive in high school. And yeah, the universe has a really great way of working out for everyone.
Yeah, I agree. And choosing like choosing your friend circle like defines how the next 4 years will go. Obviously, not for your academics, but your friend circle will determine like kind of your like mental state. So,
Right.
Anika, thank you so much for sharing your experience and journey through high school and how you're making the best of it. Thank you for showing us that we aren't alone in this and it's completely normal to feel all of the feelings. We've recently released 2 podcasts with Dr. Denise Pope where we discuss how to shift our mindset from doing school to deep learning. So be sure to check it out. We'll include the description in the link below.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Seerat.
You are listening to Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving, a podcast series by Tharaka Foundation. As part of our youth series, we will be releasing new episodes every month, so make sure to continue to check those out. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and we thank you so much for listening.